The Game Awards wrapped up last week, and a lot of discourse is currently taking place over it. At the forefront of it all is a couple of gameplay trailers that fans are not too happy about. Now, as a whole, I have never been that much of a Game Awards fan. I never understood the point of it. They call it the Game Awards, but they showcase mostly gameplay trailers. If you want a night highlighting great games from the past year and the talent that made it happen, you should do that. If you want a night highlighting upcoming video game trailers, you should do that too. However, calling it an award show and then mostly doing gameplay trailers, I just never understood the point. Anyway, I am getting caught up in unrelated talking points as well. I have not watched in the past 2 years, but I hope they have improved at balancing it. Since I cannot get myself to sit through a 2.5-hour ad campaign disguised as an award show, I have mostly relied on clips, comment sections, and trailer reactions to get a feel of the temperatures in the room. I have to say that this year, the online discourse has never been more opinionated. Now, this is not something that started at the Game Awards. There has been a shift in the way video game characters are portrayed in the space for years now. Not all, but many large developers are moving away from your traditional, what they call fan service characters, in favor of a more modern look. To put it in simple terms, no more pretty people, because it is offensive. Only unappealing characters with horrible personalities that we call strong and independent. All of this brings us back to the Game Awards and Naughty Dog's announcement trailer for Intergalactic. The truth is there is a lot to unpack with this trailer. At this point, we do not know anything about the actual game. As I mentioned, it was only an announcement trailer, and there was no gameplay for it. Naughty Dog, for the longest time, had a great reputation with fans. Last of Us is considered one of the greatest games of all time. The Uncharted games is not far behind. Neil Druckmann, for all his faults, is behind many of these classics. You can call him many things, but he is clearly very talented. That is why he got promoted to head of Naughty Dog. Sadly, over the last decade, he has been doing a bit more politicking. As a result, his game development has taken a back seat to his social ideology. He has been aligning himself with people that I believe are bad for the video game industry, like Anita Sarkeesian. This has been showcased in games like Last of Us Part 2, which, unlike the first one, has not been received very well. Neil Druckmann, who is used to only praise, also did not take the criticism very well, lashing out at gamers. This is a common thing that we see with people like this. It is not their fault. It is everyone else. Well, Naughty Dog is now back once again with an all-new game, and many are questioning the motives. The lead protagonist is a bald person of color, and she is clearly very strong and independent and needs no man. So the question that we need to ask is why this would be an issue. The short answer to the question is that it should not be an issue. Women exist, strong women exist, and people of color exist, and placing them into video games should not be an issue. We have plenty of badass white men like this in video games. Why not badass women? Now, obviously, we all know that it is not that simple. Badass women have always existed in video games. It is nothing new. However, the recent shift has less to do with the appearance of characters and much more with the ideology behind it. Everyone loves more badass characters. What they do not like is the obvious pandering and preaching. Many developers who create inclusive characters do not do so because it is simply a natural thing to do. They do it because they believe current gaming is toxic. Being a white male in a video game is bad, and we need to change gaming to be more modern. For the last 10 years, they have been peddling Gamergate propaganda, turning the debate into a social issue. Now that gamers have responded and pushed back, they turn around and ask why any of this even matters. If it did not matter, why work so hard to change it? The truth is, no one should care that there are people of color or women in video games, and most don't. What they hate is the political and social messages from these people. You might have noticed that the discussion around gaming being sexist or racist and needing to be modernized is never done by people of color. It is almost always a white dude or woman talking about it. An avowed art director recently made the news over comments towards white men. He went on a self-hating rant about how he wanted to work with more black people who could replace him. He then bragged about putting pronouns into the game in order to piss off people like Elon Musk. Now that statement right there tells you everything that you need to know. He does not include them because he believes in equality. No, he does it to piss other people off. It is not the LGBTQ community asking for representation in video games. It is rich, woke white people who are straight themselves, using the movement to showcase how stunning and brave they are for creating gay characters. At the back end, their studios are more white than Europe during the medieval times. It is clear, opportunistic nonsense. People like to talk about grifters in the space covering these types of things. That might be true, but there are just as many grifters in the video game space doing these types of things. Neil Druckmann sadly has become one of these people. He will be throwing a parade for himself and having a self-suck session about how stunning and brave he is for developing a game with women of color as the lead. It is sad because representation should not immediately be dismissed as woke. This game deserves a chance to exist and should be judged on the story and gameplay. Unfortunately, it won't. Not because of the representation in the game, but the way social issues are being discussed by those developing the game. For the last decade, Naughty Dog has made it their mission to get involved in the social wars, discussing it publicly. You can't now be made when the other side pushes back and responds similarly. It has turned into a social war because you have turned it into a social war. I do not reject this game because of the lead protagonist. I do not think you should either. However, I need to reject the motives behind those responsible for these games. Sadly, those who end up suffering are the ones Naughty Dog claims to represent.